Welcome to Deep Thought. So much in the world. Now, the past couple episodes, I was talking about like movements and things happening, and honestly, that was just a microcosm of what could be talked about. One of the things I strongly advise anyone who follows this channel to do, pay attention to everything. Pay attention to everything. Like when I was talking about movements on Tuesday, I told you I found out about one movement reading in a magazine that had thoughts that went against my thoughts. But they were talking about something that was like, wow, talking about a movement I had no, that's been already there, really. I still ain't gonna give the movement any play, but this particular movement. But I was just like, wow, there's so much there. I'm gonna tell you something I do. Sometimes I will watch and listen to stuff that have ideas that go against what I have. Because I'm going to tell you what, one of the things that's just in my nature, I'm saying this in my nature. Now, whether or not you want to adopt this, that's up to you, but I strongly suggest you do. You need to know what's going on. Like when I was talking about movements, one of the things I do, anytime I come across a different movement or a movement I hadn't heard about, it's like, well, how can this be a problem to me? Now, some can and some can't. I was like, that ain't a problem to me. At least now it's not. I don't know how to be in like 10 years or 20 years, shoot, even 5 years. But one of the things is still paying attention to it, regardless of what it is. I was like, because what I'll do is like, if I see like mention of a movement I hadn't heard about or something happening or a trend I hadn't heard about, I just sit and just say, okay. My first thought is, okay, how does that affect me? Being a money grubber. Second thought is, how can I make money off of it? And then third, it's like, well, I'm not being bothered. I can't make money off of it. It's not affecting me. And let me just put a note behind it. Let me just put a note, And then there's been plenty of movements and happenings and everything. I put a note beside, and then all of a sudden I got to dust off that note. I was like, oh, wait a minute, I got to look at it a little bit more now. Then there's been plenty of stuff that happened. See, I'm going to tell you what. One of the signs of intelligence is knowing you don't know everything. Like, I always say, what example I always use? I always say, I cannot explain quantum physics in Mandarin to anybody. Because first I would have to learn quantum physics, then I had to learn Mandarin. And then, could I explain it in French? I hadn't had French since college. So I would, or could I explain it in Tree? Then Tree, that's a language out of West Africa, Ghana, the Ghana area. Could I explain it in Tree? My point is, there's so much. You don't know what's going on. I could spend the rest of my life looking at different movements, different subcultures, and still not be there. That's something I do. Sometimes I'm online and stuff. I'll go to like a subcultures list or a movement list. And I'm like, wow, I ain't heard about that. Oh, wow, that's a serious thing? Shoot. Some of them are twisted though, to me though, but that's a whole other conversation. But I still need to know. Like, well, you know what? I'm going to say it. I read something about an organized subculture of pedophiles. And I was just like, shit, that's fucked up. But it's something to know. It's something to know. Like, people are born into this particular culture. At least that's what it was. Can't find any information on it. See, that's one thing, too. If you find a website or anything and it's talking about something you hadn't heard of, at least write it down. Because sometimes those websites, especially if it's something that goes against what the public is going to tolerate, they don't stay around long. They don't stay around long. So, there's been a lot of stuff that I found that way. But you want to always pay attention, because I'm going to tell you what, every movement in the world started someplace. You go to any country that had maybe some type of fascist right or left wing movement that came to power, that movement started someplace with someone. Every movement, I don't care, every lifestyle, everything started someplace. So it's like pay attention to that, because you never know when it's going to affect you, when it's going to interfere with your life. Because sometimes people will see stuff and say, oh, that's not going to be a problem. That's not going to be a problem. But what do I say? What was that saying about movements? First people ridicule it, then people discuss it, and then people adopt it. You know? And in a book I had, I ain't going to talk about what's behind this book, because it give you, I'll just say it give you too much indication into my whole personality. But you know, a character in the book, it was a book of fiction, but it had some good stuff that could be applied to the real world. And the character in this particular book said, you know, all these movements were laughed at first. And they used communism, fascism, and everything. You know, he even mentioned Christianity. And it was like money made them a reality. See, that's the thing. You want to pay attention to everything going on, because you know, people might laugh and say, nah, people ain't gonna do that. Oh, that's crazy. But I don't care what it is. People were getting into it. Like I'll mention one, like I've talked a lot about Yao and Yamache Morris and, you know, what he presents. And because I had talked publicly before about no-touch orgasms years ago. And it sounds crazy, you know, except I've witnessed it, but I'm like, wait a minute, more and more people are getting into it. Now, when it was first started talking about it, we talking like 2007. That was crazy. It's like, oh, what the hell is that? Now, all of a sudden, I'm seeing people, I'm seeing like a movement growing there. It's still small, but I'm like, who's to say that's not going to be something major? You know, and that's just one example. That's just one example. Now, some people wouldn't have a problem with it. I don't see a personal problem with it, but some others might for whatever reason. So, but it's still something to pay attention to. See, you got to pay attention to every little thing, every movement. Like I said before, a movement, it could start with just two people. All it needs is a second person. That's all it needs. Because then it expands, because, okay, say somebody have an idea, right? They get one person to like adhere to it, believe in it. They talk to another person. Then they talk to like a couple of people. All of a sudden you might have 20 people. You know, so people stay small and everything, but then every movement reaches a tipping point. What if you get a major content creator that promotes a movement, promotes an idea? All of a sudden, that movement go from 20 to 1 million, 2 million. You never know. I'm just saying, though. But that's just something you pay attention to. Everything you pay attention to. And not more than just movements, just what's going on in the world. And even then, no matter how much you look at, no matter how much you try to study, that's only a tiny part. It's still, you know, one of the things is once you realize how much knowledge you have, and the more knowledge you get, the more you realize you don't have. There's so much in the world. There's so much. So anyway, something to think about. So always keep your eyes open, your ears open, especially for stuff like I said, you might see something. It's like, okay, does that affect me personally? No. Can I make money off it? Okay, let me put it up for a bit. 5 years later, it might be something major you need to really look at, all right? So anyway, that's all I got for today. Y'all keep rising, all right? And I'll talk to y'all. Peace and blessings.